Hello, everyone, and today we're going to do something crazy, okay? Hello, everyone. Today we're going to do something crazy because we're going to be live on two different streams. One is Instagram and the other one is YouTube. Now, why this? Because technology, or at least I haven't figured out how to make it go live on both simultaneously. So today is going to be in English again, okay? So just follow it. So I'm going to be streaming directly on the computer so you can see me and I'll talk only in one direction. So just bear with me 1 second. And we're going to try this technological approach. There you go. Right. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining at Thursday Changemakers Live. Now, what is a change maker? A change maker is somebody that goes beyond the standards, is somebody that goes beyond conventional culture to make a change. Okay, this can be in society, this can be in business, and this can be in politics or anything else that touches your environment, including your family. Now, we have sorry, but I think we have a problem here. I'm sorry, I think we have a problem with the connection on Instagram. Perfect. Okay. We have a connection problem on Instagram, so we're going to go live, make it simple on YouTube, and then we'll reflect it on Instagram. So what we have practically is this. Hold on a second, let me just get rid of this title. So today it's kind of particular day. There has been many developments, and tonight there was supposed to be a great person coming to the event, which is Anne-France Didier, which is one of the. She was part of the One Planet Summit for the Ocean, the One Ocean Summit in Brest. So nobody better than her could be there to explain what happened. She's part of the Ministère de l'Environnement, de l'Énergie et de la Mer, part of the environmental transition of France governmental posts. So what happened in Brest? In Brest, there was a summit, just to make a point for all of you. There was a summit where 43 countries, actually, 42 countries got united to engage themselves into discussing the limits, legislations, and what to do with the environment, especially in the focus with the oceans. Now, one of these countries was Germany, Canada, Barbados, Chypre, and many others, France, of course. And what has been discussed in 1 week is that there has been several agreements, there have been several alliances on protecting the environment. This is one of the most important things. There has been more than 84 countries that have agreed on a 30% on the objective of covering of safekeeping 30% of the oceans, which means controlling and blocking all kind of exploitments, all kind of activities that might endanger, that might harm the oceans. So this is a plan for 2030. So this is quite a good step forward. Obviously, 2030, it's a long way ahead. We're in 2022. It means 8 years of full exploitment, which and also governments change, people change. So this might have to be reseen and reevaluated through time. But this is an important step, and we have to keep on going. We have to make progress and unite and push the administrations forward. Now, I repeat, this has to be bottom up other than a top down approach. So yes, we are waiting for the governments and administration to regulate this, but as people, we have to make sure that our territory, our home, which is the entire earth, is respected and rightfully treated. So it's up to all of you guys that will be watching this and that are watching this, to make sure that your territory, your lands, your sea is respected. Even if you live in the country or in the mountains, the sea is part of your territory. This is all our house. This is what belongs to us and to our children, to future generations. So there has been several points. So there's been a focus on biodiversity and how to protect it. So this was the 30% of protection of the sea. There's been acts towards climate change, so such as the Green Marine Europe, which is an interesting point. Is 22 shipyards have agreed to convert with 8 objectives, so to diminish noise, marine noises, whether above or under the sea. Then emission of atmospheric pollution elements, emissions of gas like carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gas, and the treatment of oils and other waste products, as well as the recycling of boats. Now, this concerns us, of course, because our project is, as you all know, our project is to prepare 2 boats to set off into the ocean to collect and convert plastic waste into green energy, hydrogen, that will be used to power the boats themselves, and the transformation process. So this is important because we're going to be reaching out to those shipyards, to those ship manufacturers that have agreed on this Green Marine Europe agreement, because there is a recycling of boats, and so we will not be using a new boat. We will recycle a boat that has been used. We'll be recycling this, and we'll adapt it with the technologies that we are developing right now with one of the biggest research center in Europe, the most accredited, that will develop this with us starting from March. And I will disclose the name of our partners at the end of the month. So we are going to be working together with them and with other partners, very important partners, to advance in this. Why? Because we believe that we have to make a difference, but the difference that we have to make is using the materials and using the products, the elements that we already have. That means recycling, upcycling, reusing and adapting, other than just generating more products and throwing it to waste again, or wasting other products that could have been used anyway. So this is the approach that we were having, and definitely I'm very happy for this Green Marine Europe. Then we also have 18 of the European ports that have agreed to actually accelerate the supply of electricity, high volumes of electricity to power electrical boats and ships. So this is a good transition point. Obviously, there also have to be some laws and regulations of where this electricity comes from what kind of resources, whether it's renewable, whether it's just coal or petrol or gas, which is the same thing. So we have to understand also that the origins, and you see, the transition is good. We're talking about 2030. We're talking about, for most things, it's 2030 the least. It's good, it's better than nothing, but we have to start making a change now for us, okay? Start making the change this year, not wait another year or wait until somebody else comes along and does it. Now, another point that was discussed in the Ocean Summit was the ocean pollution, especially the plastic, because we're talking about different forms of pollution, but plastic pollution is one of the most observable. Okay, we can see it because it floats, part of it, and most of it sinks to the bottom. It's true, but we have a great quantity that still stays around and accumulates and goes either on the shores or in the gyres in the middle of the oceans. So we have the European Bank of Reconstruction and different banks of the development, French development, AFD, the German banks, KfW, Italian one is CDP, and Spanish ICO. They have all joined forces to double their intervention. So this is another good point, bringing up a total of 4 billion euros of financing from here till 2025 for initiatives that actually make a better solution and clean up and solve this problem with the plastic entering the oceans and eliminating the plastic in the oceans. Now, I hope this is not just a pure financial tool, because most of the times these are very good incentives, okay, for companies, but there are some limitations to it, and not everybody can access it. Everybody with a good scope and with a honest scope. So, which I'm not saying is bad. I mean, it's a positive thing that there is this ambition in growing and pushing, but it has to be available for the actors, especially the actors in the field. So there is an engagement, also a world engagement on the economy of plastics. So we're going towards 100% reusing and recycling of plastic, which is very good. So we have countries like Greece, Italy, Colombia, South Korea, and that have joined the engagement, the world engagement for a new economy on plastic. Now, I would like to launch a proposal. I said it last time, the carbon taxes. Maybe we should launch plastic taxes. Like, what is your plastic amount that you use, that you produce, that you consume in your work, and what can you do to counterbalance this? What kind of action do you take to counterbalance this plastic amount that has been used or reversed or destroyed? Okay, so kind of like a carbon tax, I think there should be also a plastic tax. Look, plastic credits and plastic taxes to incite, to motivate into the investment, into donations, into participation, into actions. What I'm saying is plastic credits should be given not only for donating money to associations like Gaia or anybody else who cleans, but I think they should be given also to, or should be accredited for actions that people do, like cleanup actions, like companies may organize a cleanup action on a beach, on a land, or anything, or some socially, environmentally respectful action that might give them the credit. So these are important steps that should be thought of maybe in the future. I hope it will come. So we have a very strong international political agenda on the oceans. So we have the next major conference that's of the United Nations on the ocean will be in Lisbon in June, and the COP27 will be in Egypt. But there are many other events actually, which the Economist is doing some important events at the beginning of March, online events on the oceans. There's the Monaco Ocean Week, which will be held in Monaco, Monte Carlo. This at the end of the month, and where I will be presenting Gaia first, the operation, and then there will be many other. Actually, this year seems to be a very important year for the oceans and for the actions that need to be taken and are going on right now. So it's an excellent start of the year. It's an excellent start of the year. We have already the booking of France and Costa Rica in a joint effort to work on the United Nations Conference on the Ocean again in 2024. So we already have expectancies. So it's France right now is leading a little bit the way, showing that they are very capable, that they are knowledgeable, and they are important in this transition, in this waking up of the importance of the oceans, which is very good. Again, I understand it's coming close to the election period, but I am sure that whoever is proposing this will keep the promises forward, because it is an important matter in international levels. So we have many promises, many engagements. Hopefully, we will have Anne-France that, as I said, Madame Anne-France Didier, that was not able to join us today, this quarter of an hour, this 20 minutes with us. I'm sure there will be another occasion, maybe next week or in 2 weeks. So she can tell us directly how the discussions have been going on and what are the points, the important points, the positive points that came out of that summit in Brest. Now, today we do have a very important guest, which is Michael Christensen, who is with us. He's the ambassador of Denmark to France, and what's important, he's invited to the Changemakers live because he's a change maker. He has previously worked for the Danish Prime Minister's office, especially as advisor for climate, and also as deputy head of cabinet of commissioner for climate action in the European Commission. So here is Michael. Hello, Michael. Thank you for joining us.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you. A little far distant, but I can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I don't have my headset, but I'll speak loudly.
Okay, all right. Let me just make this big so that I see you well. Okay, good. So we had lots of problems actually today because we were supposed to do a live in between Instagram and YouTube, but there's a problem with the result, so with the connection. So there is no Instagram, so we'll be publishing this afterwards on Instagram. Okay. So we're only going on live right now on YouTube. But thank you so much anyway. So I'm happy that you joined because there have been like some questions actually that were posted last time you were with us on the webinar on the importance of the oceans, of cleaning the oceans, and so many people have written saying how impressed with Denmark's love for the oceans and for the environment. Also, they found interesting points on the gasification system. And there is, for example, here I have a question from Olga Smith from Sacramento. She said, concerning exactly the uses of gasification, it says, how long has Copenhagen been using gasification to deal with their municipal waste, and why don't more cities in the world use this? This is a big question. Why don't they do it if it's so successful, and you're actually importing garbage, right?
Yeah,
So
like I said, we don't produce enough these days. We actually I found out, and that's unfortunate, that we use more plastic for wrapping goods than any other nation per capita. So we have a tradition of putting everything in plastic, but uh, now there's a lot of awareness, which means you start thinking about other ways. You don't need to wrap things. You can find some environmentally friendly emballage. But it's this awareness that's so important, because that's what people don't realize, how much garbage they produce, until someone tells them you could do a lot better, and actually it would make sense to do it differently. And I heard you talked about the plastic tax. I think you need to give incentives, which economic incentives works. That's why we talk about carbon tax, and I think also plastic tax. If people don't do it by their free will, let's move them in a direction where
yes.
and there I think you need these kind of economic incentives to change behavior sometimes, and I think it's fair enough to do it that way, rather than just appeal to the voluntary efforts of every person.
It's true, because sometimes you have to push a little bit to get some reactions, right? So
Yeah, totally.
just to install a habit.
Uh, I'm actually not sure how. I think the power plant in Copenhagen, it used to run on coal in the old days, and then it changed to gas, and now it's the garbage and biomass that is used. I think the new power plant is not more than 5-6 years old. It's a very big it's a very big construction, and it has a ski hill on the top, which is quite strange for Denmark. But it's actually not snow. It's some kind of topping that where you can ski.
But
It'll
isn't that amazing? Optimization of spaces.
Yeah, no, but it's to make it an attraction and say even a power plant can be fun. So you take an elevator up, and you rent some skis, and you take the 1 minute ride down, and it becomes popular, even if it sounds crazy. And at the same time, you make it a brand for a environmental friendly, zero carbon way of producing electricity and heating.
Yeah, exactly. But look, well, I'm fascinated. Where is all this love for the environment? Because you've been working for the environment, whether in the European Commission or with the Prime Minister. Where does it come from, and what's your end goal, your projection?
I think we were one of the first countries in the 70s to actually create a ministry for the environment. Before that, nobody had very big environmental concerns. Pollution was not really a word. I think people knew about pollution, but it was not considered a political problem. There was no awareness of what the industrialization caused for the environment. But in the 1970s, it started to become an issue, and that we had to set rules to limit, because it's the common good, and how do you protect it? And I think and now, I mean, everywhere you will have environmental ministers, but at the time there wasn't really a focus on this. But that was not the climate. That was the biodiversity. That was the local environment that we were concerned with. That's like when we started to take lead out of gasoline, because we found out that children actually could be quite damaged by the exhaust fumes from cars because there was lead in it. And later, and I guess we are way up in the 80s and 90s, we started to talk about climate change and start to be concerned with the CO2 emissions. But it is, if we look historically, it's rather new that we have had this awareness on these issues. So I don't know why we started. I guess there was also a trend in the late 60s and 70s to do things differently, maybe a bit of an anti-capitalist trend that said companies shouldn't just be allowed to do whatever they wanted. There should be a framework, there should be limits. And these environmental movements, which also were a lot of bottom-up movements from people who are just not happy with the way things are, set the political trend at the time. And now with climate change, it's been ups and downs, but I think now the trend is set. We have to limit emissions at the European level. They're quite ambitious targets. In Denmark, we set a target of 70% reductions by 2030. The European target is 55, but we put it at 70. So you have to push yourself. And everybody said you can't do 70% in 10 years, but sometimes you need to set a target that is higher than what science or legislation tells you to do. So you push the limits.
Yes.
And I think that's one way, because if we only do what's possible today, we won't get to where we want to be in 10 years because things develop. So sometimes you need to push yourself above a target that is immediately possible. I remember I talked to people in Copenhagen, and then they said, yeah, but it's a bit of a problem, 70%, because we have to stop eating meat. The cows are some really big polluters. Yes. So I say, okay, is that, are you going to do that? And they said it's difficult because it's also culture and tradition. So can you abandon cow meat in the menu? Can you abandon milk? It's not an easy thing to do. But I think the whole discussion about climate change means people eat less red meat, at least in Denmark, in countries. People probably still drink milk, but still there is a bigger concern that when you set yourself at a table with a big steak on your plate, people will start thinking, maybe I shouldn't do this. So again, this information creates some behavioral change, which sometimes is good for lawmakers because it is quite difficult to forbid cows. I told it to French people in the Ministry of Climate and Energy, and they shook their heads and said, "We are never going to talk about this ever."
It is a delicate subject, because
it is a very delicate subject. But agriculture is one of the last sectors we really need to deal with, because we don't really have a plan for the agricultural sector. It's so sensitive in most countries, but it has to be part of the solution. So you have to push in all fields and try. What we try in Denmark is to bring the sector with us when we look for solutions. So instead of the parliament saying, okay, we make these 5 things, they invite the organizations, the agricultural organizations around the table and say, help us. We need to hit a target and help us find a good way to do it. If you don't want to help us, we do it anyway. But you have a chance to influence the process. And at least in Denmark, it tends to work. That people say, okay, we better sit at the table and influence it rather than watch somebody just do things we don't believe in. So it's a way. It's not in every country you can do it, but it's worth trying on a sensitive area like agriculture.
Well, one has to start. One country has to start, and then others will look up and say, "Look, they've done it. We can follow." So I just wanted to go back to one point, which was interesting, that you said, Denmark decided to apply these regulations and over the country, and the country, it was in the 60s, 70s, and we dared, and actually it was good, and we created a movement. And it was, if we go back to the ocean now, regulations and laws and regulations on the oceans, It's a different matter because it's international waters, unless we're talking about the coastlines, but it's international waters. So although there are some regulations, there's no way of controlling. And even if there is control, who deals with, let's say, not punishing, but bringing to court or convicting trespasses, like polluters or whatever. So wouldn't it be better, just an idea, if we made in an ideal world the whole international waters area like a country, like give it a state, like call it Oceania or Antarctica, or no Antarctica, sorry, or Atlantis. I don't know, but give it a name and a state where it has got its own power, its own legislations, and if somebody with its laws, and if somebody trespasses the laws, it's convicted, and the other states, whatever the origin of this, the trespassers are, they convict like it would happen on an international grounds. Wouldn't that be an idea?
It could be an idea, but it's not a simple idea, because who are the people running this nation you are creating? Would that be the coastal states, or would it be a United Nations forum? Because if you look at Antarctica, I think it's divided between a number, is it 5 or 6 countries that has interest or was discovering Antarctica, and they have decided, here's a continent without people, so we 5 or 6 countries, we make decisions about Antarctica. And maybe it's easy because, well, it's a big chunk of ice and it's a research.
Yeah, nobody goes there. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
but if you do it with oceans, I think you would need to do it. I mean, I think that's one of the questions for a United Nations Oceans Conference. How do you create a body that governs the oceans? And exactly like you say, how do you create a system where trespassing has consequences? It's not easy in the United Nations it's easy to decide on governance. It's much difficult to decide on penalties and consequences. But I think for oceans, there's no better way than to force much more regulation and control and consequence making. You need to see in what way the United Nations can do it. But we may need, I mean, we have these oceans conferences, but we may need other bodies who can actually handle these kind of questions. We have the law of the sea in the United Nations, but often that's to govern frontiers. For Denmark, it's also, I think, the one that has to do, when we've tried to figure out who owns the North Pole. There are UN bodies that look into these kind of things, but I think with oceans we have like a vacuum in terms of being more strict in regulating how we treat the oceans. So there is a need for some international body with powers. And I don't know the exact agenda for the UN conference in Lisbon in end of June, I think. But it's an issue, because we know, I mean, you are focused very much on the plastic pollution, but it's one of the many issues we have difficulty dealing with, because no one has a real responsibility here, and therefore it's nobody's problem. It's everybody's problem, but it's also nobody's problem.
But nobody takes it, exactly. It's like the Far West a little bit, and I don't see, I don't deal with it, and then when I see and I know about it, it's not my problem. It's everybody's problem, and nobody takes it.
Yeah, everybody talks about it, but nobody really knows exactly what to do about it. So it's also initiatives like yours with collecting it and using these gasifications. it's really good, but it's an initiative you have to take, because it doesn't come from any kind of international governing body, which probably should be in place to.
No, this is what I was saying before, that the change has to have to come from below, from the bottom up, because institutions are slow. Institutions have got their own laws and regulations and paths they have to take, and it's very diplomatic, and it's very, let's say, everything has to be well organized and in accordance with the different governing bodies. Well, if it's from the people, the changes from the habits, from initiatives, then this is something that can be reached much further. And then also in the consumer side, we make the market. So if we stop using a certain type of packaging, or if we stop eating a certain type of food, we change the market in the long run, even in the short run, because companies still want to make money. So they'll adjust themselves to the new market, the new demands.
Yeah, and it becomes also for the companies an interest in developing new methods, because they can brand themselves being better, because they actually have changed their way of producing or transporting or whatever. So I fully subscribe to the public pressure here and the bottom up process, and especially on environment, because it's in many ways it's serious problems, but politically it's easier to deal with than security or other issues that becomes geopolitical. I think environment, even if you go to China, it's actually okay to complain about environment. It's okay to be concerned with the environment, and therefore I think with this and with the oceans, we are in a field where we can actually mobilize a lot of people if we can get to them, because it's okay to be concerned, and for many governments there is an interest to actually change things on this particular area. So I think, I don't know how you move to a place where also the bigger actors get the sense that now they need to take action. But I think on this kind of issues, it's possible to move things. And you mentioned several of the conferences taking place. I think every time it's a step in the right direction. Every time it's a mobilization of people and effort.
Are you going to be present in any of those conferences?
I'm probably not personally going, but my country will be. I mean, for sure, the Oceans Conference and the COP27 in Egypt. I'm not immediately familiar with who will represent us in the other conferences, but it's definitely a political priority. So we will be there, and often we are there as part of the European Union. So the European Union, the European Commission will be present and push for some of the things that unites the member states.
Yeah. Okay. One thing that there has been a remark. Somebody wrote in and says, France's love for nuclear power versus Denmark's decision not to pursue nuclear power in the mid-80s. Denmark seems to be known for wind energy. In fact, it exports a lot of energy from the wind. How do you see this concerning the new regulations on the nuclear power turning green?
To be honest, Denmark is not in favor of nuclear, and we do not consider it a green energy. But Commission has proposed this new taxonomy proposal has come, and it includes nuclear and gas as a sort of transitional source, but for the long term, I would say.
Yeah, because a nuclear power plant is not a short term.
No. If you build it before 2045, it's okay, and then it lasts till 2100. So yeah. It's having stayed 3 years in France. I realize it's very difficult to convince many layers of the society that they should skip nuclear. I've given up myself. I choose to say that, okay, France has lived with nuclear for many years without accidents, at least none I'm aware of. But we need to expand so drastically on our energy production, electricity production, because we electrify our societies, we switch from carbon fuels to electricity, so the pie is going to be much bigger. So France also needs to expand massively on renewables, and there Denmark is a front mover on wind, especially offshore wind, which is now the only thing we do in Denmark for wind. And I think France can move forward on that path and be one of the big wind nations, even if it still has nuclear. They're also big on solar, so I think there is a lot of potential to expand in France. But it's true, the Commission has approved nuclear as a CO2-free source, which is necessary in order to reach the ambitions towards 2050, and I guess that's where we are. So I don't think that's going to change. But Denmark will never go nuclear. There's no political or popular support at all, and you see that in many nations, even in Germany, they're phasing out nuclear, and I don't think it will come back. I don't know what's going to happen if they end up closing the pipeline, the Nord Stream 2. But I don't think Germany will make a decision to say, let's go nuclear again. So that just means, again, Germany needs to invest and expand renewables heavily in the coming decades with wind and solar. So I think we are going into a really renaissance for solar and wind, and it has a huge potential in Europe. So I'm optimistic, even if the Commission's proposal was a setback.
Well, okay, because I follow your line as well. I agree with your point, and I understand also it's a difficult discussion. This is it's a touchy discussion.
Oh.
But nowadays the problem with the wind and the solar is the request, the production and the request, right? Especially for solar, let's say the production is during the day and the request is also night. So there's a lot of storage that is needed, or there is, there are peaks and troughs that you have to balance out. But technology is improving, right? So we have a different approach. We have accumulators. We have many different systems that can assist a steady flow of energy when needed. So I am a strong believer that wind energy and solar energy, and maybe other technologies that might explode polarizations or magnetic influences might actually come up front quite soon, because there is a little search of new renewables. So hopefully they come before the validation of nuclear energy all over the place.
But that's one of the things, and even the French government and president says nuclear takes decades to construct. You don't build a nuclear power plant in 5 years. If you need energy in 5 years, you do solar or wind, because you can quickly establish a wind farm or a volcanic panel farm in the countryside.
Yes.
So on the short term, you need to expand massively on the renewables, because it takes too long to create the nuclear, and the French nuclear is aging. So what you build will replace the old. It won't expand the nuclear. It will replace the old nuclear, which is aging and have to be closed down in maybe a decade, maybe more, but still it takes time. So renewables has this fantastic thing that you can quickly expand it. And I think with the research on storage, which, for example, the whole power to X discussion, hydrogen is also a way, green hydrogen is a way to store electricity from renewables. We will get much better in these storage facilities. So you need less and less backup, because that's what we always met with here. You can build a wind farm, but then you need to build a nuclear power plant, because when there is no wind, it's an easy argument, but it's not true, because there are technologies that means that when the wind is not blowing, we use what we have stored last week. It's not like don't turn on your light when there's no wind. It's too basic criticism. It's not correct. So I mean, we don't have power cuts in Denmark, even if more than 50% of the electricity is produced by wind. So I think sometimes technology solves the issues for us, but we can't just sit and wait for technology. We have to move, because as we move forward, technology will follow, because you have to create like a market. For example, the storage. If we didn't have a lot of renewables, who would think about developing the storage capacity? So sometimes you have to move into unknown territory and believe that we will solve the issues with storage and so on as we move forward, instead of just waiting to see when we have the technology. Because if we already created the market for the technologies, it's much more likely they will be developed.
That's a very good point, and that this is a good ending point, because we have reached the end of the Thursday lives. Just one last message. What would you say to change makers? Anybody out there? What would you say to them? An advice to give them?
But I mean, always move on, and never give up, never be satisfied. I think change is not an endpoint. Change is an ongoing thing. There is no point to where we say now we have done everything we need to do. There's always a need for change. So keep pushing, even when you don't reach all the good results you dream of. But it's that push that pushes us a step forward. And reality is always slower than the ideal world. But I think it's the endless push for change, and never be satisfied with where we have reached. I think it's a struggle, but it shouldn't be a struggle. It should be a positive push, but it just has to continue.
It's a continuous fight.
It's a continuous fight. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for sharing your experience and your passion. And thank you everybody for following us. And please don't hesitate to share our to follow us and to share our videos. And thank you again.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Michael. Thank you.